Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
My anus is bleeding!
He can't sit down.
They call them dumps, big massive dumps.
Got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Beta bear.
Get in a long tube with a bunch of demons.
Don't you ever do that. Don't you ever do that. I tell you don't do it.
Oops.
We're under attack. It is an alien force, not of this world. It's not human intelligence.
Bullshit.
Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Bullshit.
It's not a salami sandwich.
Disappointed!
Repeat the line.
Disappointed!
How you like that, boy?
No.
Give me a break.
Stop it.
Fired.
Fired!
Bitch, move it along.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
We'll do it live.
Route the nation, Waldorf Nation. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It's Tuesday. We got a full show. Unfortunately, we, of course, have disastrous news. I am going to spend some time talking about what happened in Tennessee. A bit of a tragedy that, of course, is being politicized. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into the details. We're going to dispel some of the narratives surrounding the alleged shooter. I know I'm supposed to say alleged, but I think it's fairly clear that from what I know, from all the news reports, all the information that we know who the shooter is. So I'm going to talk about that. We're going to go into it and into the details, push back against, again, some ridiculous narratives that are coming out that are just untrue. And then we are going to switch gears. We're going to talk about Trump making a good point and getting cut off on Fox News. That's an amazing story because it has to do with the one thing that Trump has been talking about that's actually a good thing. And it's actually good that he's talking about it. Doesn't mean he means it, but he is talking about it, and it's a sore spot with the Republicans, and that's always fun. So we have that. Then we are going to talk about Virginia Thomas, or Ginni Thomas. That is Clarence Thomas's wife. Clarence Thomas is, of course, a Supreme Court justice. So, she got some shady money. What do I mean by shady money? Basically, it's hidden. It's in the shade. But, like, we don't know who was funding these groups and where the money was spent and if she even received any of it. And we'll get into the details of why that is disastrous. So why that's not a good thing. And so, yes, lots of stuff. Let's get into it. Oh, before I start, I would really like you all to please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. Helps us out as usual. With that, let's dive in. We'll start out with just a brief overview of the things that we know about the Tennessee, Nashville shooting. So, let's get into it. On Monday, a private religious school in Nashville, Tennessee, was targeted for a mass shooting, and now we're getting some details about what happened, how many were killed, and, of course, the identity of the shooter. So now, on Monday, a shooter entered the Covenant Christian Presbyterian, which is a private school, and gunned down several people before being fatally shot by police. So now, in this case, the police did what they were supposed to do. This was not a Uvalde type of situation. They responded, again, within about 14 minutes of the alleged gunman entering into the school. And so, no hesitation. There's body cam footage, that has been released of the situation. Again, no hesitation in taking out this, essentially, this mass shooter. Okay, so now, unfortunately, the victims, so far, including the gunman, there were 7 victims. 3 were children under the age of 10. 3 adults were also killed. And getting back to the police here, according to Metropolitan Nashville Police Chief John Drake, of the officers, quote, "They didn't hesitate at all." Well, look, they did what they were supposed to do. So that's not going to be of issue at all, their response. Okay. So now, those are the basic facts. So what we get into now is the dispelling of certain narratives. Okay. So look, whenever there's a mass shooting, the day that it happens, there's a lot of information, sometimes a lot of inaccurate information. And look, and I think a lot of that, of course, is just like initial reporting. There's a lot of confusion about what's going on. And, you know, that's definitely a part of that. And then also, I'm going to have to note that there are some people who just put out inaccurate information. And so that's something that we have seen before. And we'll see if that's the case here. But so far, what we know from the details is that the shooter was a 28-year-old assigned female at birth, transgender man named Audrey Hale. Now, that is his dead name, I believe. As far as I know, he hadn't changed his name legally, and so he also apparently wanted to be known through a different name. But I will address him, of course, as just Mr. Hale. So, again, he identified as a trans man and was a former student at this private religious school. Police are still, of course, looking for a motive, but I think there's reason to believe that this is personal. Okay. And so now he was armed, apparently, with at least an AR-15 rifle, another assault style pistol or rifle. I'm not entirely sure. Again, the details are not entirely clear here. And a pistol. Police had also found several weapons at his home, as well as detailed plans to do other shootings, attacks, and a manifesto, which, again, we don't necessarily know. And so now Drake had told CBS on Tuesday that detectives believed that Hale had resentment towards the Covenant School, which, again, is a private religious school, and which, by the way, is next to a church, pretty much church property, not a public school, and basically taught preschool to 6th grade students. Hale had targeted and planned the shooting. So, okay. Now, this shooting, again, since it involves, from what we know right now, a transgender male, we know what this conversation is going to be mostly about, that you're going to see on the news. It's going to be about trans. It's not going to be about weapons. It's not going to be about AR-15s. It's not going to be about guns. No, this conversation is already all about trans. And I'll give you some examples of it in the following segments. And so that's unfortunate. Now, look, this is despite, by the way, the fact that transgender people are disproportionately underrepresented as those who engage in violence and mass shootings. You just don't see that happen very often. It's incredibly minuscule. Out of all the mass shooters, you have the tiniest percentage that happen to be a trans person. Generally, it tends to be males, young white males, who make up most of the people who are involved in mass shootings, who engage in mass shootings. Now, again, what made this different and stand out a lot is generally people who are assigned female at birth and identify as men, trans men. You'll just about never hear of any situations where there is violence involved. And so this really is an edge case, not something that happens often at all. But again, what you're going to hear, and this is why I'm giving you this information, what you're going to hear is testosterone. What are the effects of testosterone on a female body? Violence, mental illness. So we already know. We already know this. So I'm already trying to get out of this. Look, here's the thing. The real problem is that people in this country, in the United States, are able to amass an arsenal, their own personal arsenal of guns, and use them to carry out violent, terrible acts against innocent people. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in defending yourself. Yeah, of course, I've been clearly on the record. Hale, he was not defending himself. What he did was mass murder, and it was wrong. Now, what does that have to do with this treatment? Or I should say, does it have to do with this treatment of being transgender? I don't know, but I don't really care. Innocent children shouldn't be massacred for any reason. I think we can all agree with that. And by the way, everyone, it doesn't matter where you are in the political spectrum, agrees that school shootings need to stop. Personally, I believe that would start with trying to rein in, to do what every other country, modern industrial country, has done, to rein in some of these weapons. Because in those other countries, they do not have mass shootings that happen with the frequency and the toll that it happens in America. That should be the main focus of this conversation, not some of the other things that you're going to see from different types of ideological news outlets. And with that, I move to the next segment. Okay. A Tennessee Republican is admitting that there is no plan to keep school kids from being killed in a mass shooting. This comes on the heels of a small church religious school in Nashville being the target of a mass shooting. So now Representative Tim Birchett was recently asked by reporters, and again, this is Tennessee Representative Tim Birchett, what could be done to keep children, our school children, safe from these kinds of attacks? This was his answer.
I don't think you're going to stop the gun violence. I think you've got to change people's hearts. You know, as a Christian, as we talk about in the church, and I've said this many times, I think we really need to revive them. Precious little kids lost their lives, and I believe 3 adults, I believe it's. And the shooter, of course, lost their life too. So it's a horrible, horrible situation, and we're not going to fix it.
We're not going to fix it. I mean, there it is. We're not going to fix it. Now, the shooter, by the way, who was assigned a female at birth and identified as a male, was armed with what we believe to be 2 rifles or one rifle and a pistol that was modified, and then an additional pistol. I'm not entirely clear on what exactly he was armed with, and a ton of ammunition. And so he was ready for an assault. This was a pre-planned attack. Now, the AR-15, which was used here, being the rifle of choice of mass shootings, I mean, look, that's a fact. It seems to be a favorite. But yet Birchett says, oh, no, we can't do anything about that. Oh, but what? Do something about, guns.
Can't let that happen.
No. We can't do anything about that. Okay. We cannot regulate, shall not be infringed, they say. Okay. Now, furthermore, Birchett said that Congress, if they attempted to do any sort of gun control measures, or I should say gun safety regulations, well, he says that will just make things worse somehow. But, when I hear that, I kind of struggle to figure out how this situation can get worse when there's basically a mass shooting in this country every single day. I would say that we're already living in what is the worst of the situation. And it's funny, it's almost as if the solution is kind of like right there in front of us. You only have to look at every other modern industrial country that does not have this very problem and how they got to that. I mean, maybe we could start with, like, I don't know, passing an assault weapons ban, bringing that back, because it had already had been a law for some time. But I'm sure that Birchett, being a freedom-loving Republican, he's not in favor of banning things, right? I mean, of course, he's not going to ban the AR-15. Why? No. Not going to ban that. Not going to ban anything because I believe in freedom, right? Right? Against bans.
A grown man dressed up like a woman should not be rubbing his crotch in front of a little child. That is ridiculous. Good on Governor Bill Lee and our Tennessee legislature. The law goes into effect on July 1st. And dadgummit, we don't put up with that crap in Tennessee, and we shouldn't. And the rest of the country should follow suit. This is wrong.
Right.
This is a radical fringe that we are allowing to declare normalcy. This is wrong as wrong can be.
Oh, no, he wasn't talking about guns there. He was talking about drag shows. Drag. So, we don't put up with that crap in Tennessee, but you put up with dead children, from a mass shooter. I see what the priority is. I mean, of course, right? I mean, look, gun violence in this country is a leading cause of death for young people, children, ahead of auto accidents. Number one. Birchett says, can't do anything about that. We're not going to fix it. No, we're not going to fix it. Criminals are going to criminal. So obviously we just can't even try. I mean, we can't do any sort of bans. Not for guns that are literally killing children, but we can ban drag shows. Oh yes, ban the drag shows. Which again, drag is not inherently sexual. Yes, there can be some sexually charged drag shows. Those are not the ones that the children are invited to. Okay? But apparently drag shows more dangerous for children than them being murdered in their schools because people get access to high-powered weaponry like AR-15s. You'll put up with that, though, Birchett. But God forbid children see a man in a dress. Only a moron or somebody who is deeply, like brainwashed, whatever, by the culture wars could think that drag is a bigger danger to children. But here's the thing. It's not that they can't do anything about gun violence. Again, every other modern industrial country that has the same kinds of technology, by the way. I mean, they've got 3D printing. He went on and talked about, oh, well, you know, they're going to get guns. Oh, they'll even print guns. You know, they'll create the ghost guns. What's preventing people in Europe from doing that? Or Australia? I mean, they can do that there. They can do that here. They can do that there. But there they actually do have more restrictive gun control measures than anybody here in the United States is calling for, by the way. But still, they can't do anything. Anything. And it's because they do not want to. I've said it before. I do believe in the Second Amendment. I do believe that you have the right to defend yourself in this country. But it is obvious that we need common sense gun reforms. But there are right-wing politicians like Birchett who fear the gun lobby, the manufacturers, and the hardline gun advocates who use our broken and corrupt political systems to bribe these politicians in order to prevent any sort of change that will actually protect children and then go after people who pose literally no danger to children. Okay. Moving on, let's go to more Republican ghouls. After the news broke that the mass shooter involved in the Covenant Religious School in Tennessee, identified as a transgender man, but you ended up having the worst people in the world coming out to immediately steer the conversation away from common sense gun reforms to banning transgender care. You know, gender affirming care. Because, you know, that apparently is the main problem in this country. In fact, on Monday, here's what Marjorie Green had tweeted. How much hormones like testosterone and medications for mental illness was the transgender Nashville school shooter taking? Everyone can stop blaming guns now. Stupid.
No.
She's literally out there making the argument of, well, guns don't kill people. Hormones kill people. What? By the way, gender affirming care just doesn't mean just hormones or surgeries. It also, especially when you're talking about younger children, you're actually talking about things like just allowing people to do gender expression, like wear the kinds of clothes that, you know, conform to their gender identity, changing their name, growing out their hair, using pronouns, all that stuff. It's not until when you get into the teen years, then you start to have, you know, more of a thing like involving with, you know, hormones and things like that. But anyway, no, it's not guns, it's hormones. The hormones are killing people, everybody. It's the hormones. Really. Now, first off, we don't have any information whether Hale, and that is, of course, the shooter, was taking any sort of hormones to begin with. In this case, he would be taking testosterone. We also don't know if he had been taking any medication for mental illness. As far as I'm concerned, both of those things are a distraction. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It's a distraction. But anyway, nonetheless, science, I'm going to give you a little bit of a science lesson in case you're not clear why it doesn't matter about these, if this person had been taking hormones or not. So did you know that people who are assigned female at birth, actually do produce testosterone. The ovaries produce testosterone. Not only that, but it's created in several different places. The ovaries create it, the adrenal gland creates it, as well as various peripheral tissues. Yes, so women's bodies do contain testosterone. Now, obviously, they produce smaller amounts of it than someone who is assigned male at birth, of course, but nonetheless, the ovaries do what they do produce in testosterone actually comprises about 50% of the testosterone levels of the female body. Combined with estrogen, testosterone helps with the growth, maintenance, and repair of a woman's reproductive tissues, bone mass, and human behaviors, including sex drive. So now, that's why when women have hysterectomies, they're often advised to take hormone supplements, both estrogen and testosterone, to deal with issues related to the removal of the gonads, basically, which again is in males it's the testes, in females, of course, it is the ovaries that release these hormones. Okay, so now some of the symptoms of not having these right types of hormones are actually things like sexual dysfunction, fatigue, moodiness, and decreased muscle mass. Okay, so even if he was, and this is why it applies, taking hormones to bring his testosterone levels to that of the average male, that would have nothing to do with being involved in a mass shooting. That, I mean, there's, how do these even apply? Look, the average man, by the way, does not fly into a testosterone-fueled rage and murder people. It just doesn't happen. Okay? And by the way, if you believe that, like the tiniest amount of testosterone introduced into somebody assigned female at birth would, somehow throw them into a murderous rage, it's just completely unscientific. And by the way, the idea that men are also, like, because we have testosterone, are somehow, one step away from being violent murder machines is deeply misandrist. Now, that said, it is true that young, generally white, let's be real, males are overrepresented in the United States as being mass shooters. And I think the causes of that do need to be addressed. And I think they're more social causes than psychological causes. I mean, you do have issues like high rates of male loneliness, radicalization online. I think those things are connected. You also have, of course, patriarchal norms. Yes, patriarchy hurts men. It really does. And the availability of weapons above everything else. Not hormones, and certainly not gender-affirming care. Those are not factors that lead to mass shootings. So now, one response here came from Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, going after Marjorie Green. Here's what she told The Independent about Green's comments. It's absolutely disgusting, and she should be looking into a mirror as to why she's defending and posing with the same weapons that are being used to kill children, teachers, and educators. They all, by the way, do this. I think we've all seen, like, the Boberts doing these, poses where they're arming their children with, like, high-powered, weapons and posing for the camera. I mean, for me, it just seems like a whole lot of LARPing that's going on here in the right wing. Oh, no, look at us. We gotta go. We're playing revolutionary. It's Ralph Wiggum. I'm a militiaman. It's just ridiculous. And I wonder where we're getting this weird gun culture from. I don't quite understand. No, look, the gun is unfortunately part of her identity, and actually part of the image that she is selling to her voters. And unfortunately, that image really is something that she cares about more than anything, like protecting children. Now, Green, in response to this, doubled down, and she said this: "It's not about their identity, really. It's the questions or this, or this is what kind of hormones are they on? What kind of medications are they taking for mental illness? Oh my God. What is causing this aggression in this biological female who identifies as a male for them to go in and murder children? But these are the important things. It's important because what will testosterone do to a biological woman? She's taking tons of testosterone trying to make herself look like a man." Wow. Look, as I noted before, we do not know if he was taking testosterone, if he had been transitioning. And by the way, one source who spoke to the Daily Beast on Tuesday said that Hale's transition was a relatively recent development, which means that there's very high likelihood that he didn't even try to access gender-affirming care. Not only that, but it appears that many trans men do not undergo hormone replacement therapy at all for various reasons. Again, I don't have enough data on that. Now, that source also, and this is relating to what Green was saying about mental, healthcare or whatever, is that source said that Hale had been autistic. Now, look, autistic people are not inherently violent. And so I don't know how this would apply here. It's another distraction is what it is. Green is not only being deeply anti-trans, but we're used to that, but she's also being incredibly ableist. No, it's not. It's not the hormones. It's not the autism. I don't know what it is. But the point is, what are we going to do to, prevent someone from getting these weapons? That's the important thing. Look, what Green is trying to do is distract people. She wants everyone to change the conversation, to see what's going on here, what had happened, and think, trans bad. That's all. That this feeds into their entire culture war narrative. Despite the fact that, of course, it's not the transgender community that is, or the autistic community that is attacking and doing these massive, school shootings. It's not any particular community, but it does tend to be overrepresented by young, white, sometimes radicalized men. A lot of them right-wing. I mean, we've had a lot of white nationalist, white supremacist mass shooters in this country. Look, so now, the other thing, getting back to the mental health point, notice how a lot of this is, mental illness. See, we've got an issue. It's mentally ill people. Well, for one, no. Secondly, okay, if you actually cared about mental illness, then why are you refusing to fund programs that would help people with actual mental illnesses get help for that? Why would you be against making, some of these medications and therapies, why would you be against making them more accessible for people to help deal with mental illness? Because that's what they're doing. They're against all of these ways to increase access to care. And on top of it, they also try to ban gender-affirming care, which overwhelmingly helps trans people. So no health care including mental health care, no gender affirming care, but the one thing they can get is apparently gun care. That's what it is. So you see, they don't have a health care program. They have a gun care program. And that's what it is. I finally figured it out. The right wing believes in socialism for guns. That's what it is. We're basically we're going to be the
in Venezuela
of guns. That's it. Gun socialism. Guns for all, guns for everyone. Always more guns. Look, here's the thing about Marjorie Green. Fear, anger towards the other, violence, that is ultimately what drives her. And for Green, again, that is the only thing you really need to know about her style of politics. Okay. Forgot the one thing that drives her: money. Well, that's also true, but I think that's obvious. We all receive gender affirming care. That is very, very true. Very true. By the way, this is a, this whole thing is a little bit more personal because I actually have a transgender man in my family, my nephew. So, attacks against the trans community, trans women, trans men, trans people overall. I mean, for no reason. I mean, it just shows them that they either have never met a transgender person, talked to them, or they're just, again, people that have no empathy. They're just absolute ghouls. So, anyway, let's move on to the next segment. Switching gears. Former President Donald Trump was recently in an interview on Fox News with Fox host Sean Hannity. And he was cut off at a very interesting point. Take a look.
And he's going to run, but he's getting crushed now in the polls because he did a little things like voting against Social Security, voting against Medicare. His numbers aren't very good on COVID.
More of my interview with former President Trump straight ahead.
What was that? What? As soon as he makes a point about Social Security and Medicare, oh, well, we're going to cut away. We're going to cut away. No, we're just going to put a hard, break in there, and we'll be back after, he stops talking about Medicare and Social Security. Again, it's a super weird place to do a cut, and look, I think that was intentional. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but look, it's no surprise that Fox News is on the side of Ron DeSantis. I mean, they've said it before. Fox News, of course, headed by Rupert Murdoch, who owns Fox News and all these different, publications. New York Post, for example, has been putting out some just pretty effective, well, I don't know, effective, but brutal headlines against Donald Trump and for Ron DeSantis. And so, look, Ron DeSantis, it is true that, yes, he did want to, privatize Social Security and Medicare. Yeah. In fact, here's the details. When he was a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives back in 2012, DeSantis called for market forces and privatization to replace the current entitlement programs. Meaning, of course, your retirement will be in the stock market, and, well, that would be a pretty horrible idea. And, of course, you wouldn't get health care either. Market forces. Older people generally tend to have more health conditions because you get more health conditions as you age, and that actually makes you more expensive to insure, which is why insurance companies charge more or will refuse to cover people who are older. So, now, out of all the attacks against Ron DeSantis that Trump has put out, or all the weird nicknames, Meatball Ron, Ron the Sanctimonious. Well, this one's actually true. This one's true, and actually it's politically smart. And so you want to talk about the worst person in the world, making a good point, because that's what's going on here. So now here's another example of Ron DeSantis being hit by Trump over this very same issue. On True Social, for example, he had posted this. Great poll numbers are springing forth for your favorite president, me, against Ron DeSantis and Biden. I guess people are finding out that he wanted to cut Social Security and raise the minimum age to at least 70. 67 right now. France, by the way, literally on fire because Macron wanted to raise the retirement age, I think, to what, 66, 65, something like that. I think it's currently 63. But anyway, Trump's attack continues by saying he tried to raise the minimum age for retirement to at least 70, at least 4 times. Likewise with Medicare, wanted big cuts. He's a wheelchair over the cliff kind of guy, just like his hero, failed politician Paul Ryan. This Fox News ratings destroyer who led Mitt Romney's presidential campaign down the tubes. Globalists all, we want America first. Okay, so everything but the last part, well, maybe not everything. No, he's not exactly my favorite president. But hey, look, the whole globalist thing, no, it's not the globalists, it's capitalists. Capitalists want to privatize Social Security. Why bring in the weirdo anti-Semitism? I don't know. 62 to 64. Thank you for the retirement age in France. My God, they've got it so much better than we are, and here we are in the United States, like saying oh, 67. Oh, now politicians want to raise it even more. What? Oh, we're getting so screwed in this country by, again, corporations, our politicians. But anyway, look, as far as though the going after Ron DeSantis on the attacks on Medicare and Social Security, he's right. And it's not, by the way, just Ron DeSantis who supported these cuts and then, of course, would publicly backpedal when it came to elections, because, of course, Ron DeSantis recently was like, "Oh no, I don't believe in that anymore." No. But the other politicians, we all know Rick Scott. Rick Scott had been pushing to, again, cut Medicare and Social Security. Now, funny enough, Rick Scott also, while he was running a company in Florida, ended up doing the largest Medicare fraud in the history of the state, perhaps even the country. So his plan would have these so-called entitlements reauthorized every 5 years to be voted on. Oh, yeah, that'll go well. Jesus. Now, a lot of Republicans also had openly called for either cutting Social Security and Medicare, raising, which is, again, raising the retirement age. That is effectively a cut. And I've showed you the different times where they have openly called for this, and sometimes, of course, not openly called for this, but had told their donors behind closed doors. Now, others have realized, and I mean other Republicans, that it's actually really stupid politically to target the most popular retirement and healthcare programs in this country. Incredibly popular, programs. Earlier in March, for example, Politico quoted from Republican congressmen on the politics of Trump using this attack. Quote, this is from Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley. It got him elected the first time, and I think it will get him elected the second time. And that is, of course, defending Social Security and Medicare. But then adds, it doesn't do anything for our children, grandchildren, that aren't going to have a program that I'm enjoying right now. Wait. You realize, and he probably does, that you could fix that by eliminating the income cap on earnings subject to funding those programs that pay into those taxes. Right now, employers withhold a 6.2% Social Security tax in the first $160,000 of employees' wages. That was raised this year. It used to be $147,000. After which any dollar made would not be subject to the tax and does not go to the trust fund. Eliminate that cap, because there shouldn't be a cap in the first place. And, of course, you would increase the money that is put into the trust fund. Now, the problem is, for them, is that it would primarily affect rich people. That's why they don't want that. So, a rich people, or I should say a rich person, being told, by the way, you still, even though you've paid this much into Social Security, or this much of your earnings was subject to the tax, we're just going to eliminate the cap, and you can continue to pay it through the rest of the year. Well, they freak out. Basically say things like,
can't let that happen.
But look, they don't want to pay that tax. They don't want to pay any tax, of course, especially if it goes to help a poor person. Now, that said, Trump is right on the issue, but does he actually care? No, of course not. Of course not. But I can point out that he is playing smart politics, calling out Republicans for doing the things that they actually want to do and the things that they've said that they want to do. The thing is, a lot of these politicians will come out and believe that everybody has a selective memory and doesn't remember the things that they said that they wanted to do, or the attempts on trying to, cut Social Security that they have tried to do before. As long as they forget, like, TV exists, that there are video clips of them, and are just really good at trying to gaslight people, their own voters specifically, who, by the way, tend to, use the program and love the programs. And by the way, I'm talking mainly about Republicans, but let's not forget that there are some corporate Democrats out there that have also put Social Security on the table. One of them happens to be someone who has come out very strongly recently in favor of protecting Social Security, and that would be President Joe Biden. But back when President Biden was Vice President Biden, when he was obviously in the Obama administration, had done some negotiations with Mitch McConnell to put Social Security cuts on the table as a part of a grand bargain, for deficit reduction. Now, thankfully, that did not happen, and there were no cuts to Social Security at the time, but it is something that the Democrats did put on the table to try to make a deal with the Republicans. So you've got to be careful here and really try to make sure to, watch what the politicians are not only saying, but doing. That's why it's important to have a free press, a media that isn't the lapdogs of the people in power, but are the watchdogs of the people in power. And we have very few of those, unfortunately. So now, getting back to why Fox News, I think it's pretty obvious why Fox News kind of cut away from that. Because, look, Fox News, they're rich people, of course. All the people that are the hosts, they're millionaires. Sean Hannity, millionaire. And so, along with, of course, not wanting to pay the tax and being in favor of privatizing Social Security and Medicare, they also, since they back Ron DeSantis, do not want viewers to know that Ron DeSantis and other Republicans have been trying to cut Social Security and Medicare all along. If they knew that, if they had access to that information, well, then there would be a lot of voters that would be very angry at the Republican Party, because the vast majority of the country loves those programs. They work. And by the way, the majority of people want to see those programs expended because they work so well and they're so incredibly popular. Just trying to hide the ball, to gaslight their viewers. And by the way, doing it on on an issue that Trump is actually saying the right things for once. It just shows you who they are. Okay. Moving on. One last story. And that's Ginni Thomas. The wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is once again back in the news cycle over some of her political activity. Specifically, there were some shady anonymous donations made to a group that she had founded through a think tank, co-founded, but headed by, through a think tank that was looking to bring some hearings before the Supreme Court. Possible conflict of interest here. All right, so now, the Washington Post reports that a group headed by Thomas, Ginni Thomas, received nearly $600,000 in anonymous donations over the past 3 years. In fact, the newly revealed donations were channeled through a right-wing think tank as something called a fiscal sponsorship. I could use a fiscal sponsorship right about now. Don't we all? But just tends to be something that happens on the right with these gigantic right-wing think tanks. Now, her group is called Crowdsourcers for Culture and Liberty. And they're crowdsourcing some dark money. Now, they call it a fiscal sponsorship. I'm going to call it a bribe. And I'm sure you will too, once you get the details. This arrangement effectively hid the details about this group's activities and spending, as well as the donors. Now, look, here's how it worked. Anonymous donors had given a think tank called Capital Research Center funds totaling $596,000 designated for crowdsourcers, as according to tax filings and other required documentation, which again is pretty sparse on details. $400,000 of that money was routed through another nonprofit called Donors Trust. Donors Trust then steered money from undisclosed wealthy donors to different conservative causes. Now, the documentation does not say how the money was spent and how much Ginni Thomas, whose main income comes from her consulting firm, was paid. Now, at the same time that they were receiving this money over the span of 3 years, the Capital Research Center had been looking into, getting a case involving fuel emissions regulations in Oregon before the Supreme Court. They didn't like the regulations. They wanted the court to hear it and to rule in favor of what we assume to were donors in the fossil fuel sector. So, and of course, she happened to be head of that very group that was getting all this money. Weird. Now, the court ultimately declined to take up the case, and I don't know how Clarence Thomas had ruled in hearing, and whether he was in support of hearing the case or not. But remember, it is not just him. And I'm actually surprised to see the very, super incredibly corporate court reject hearing a case that would benefit corporations. But still, it seems like this was a case of possible influence peddling, perhaps a bribe. Look, when these groups go through so many lengths to cover up the details about how much people were paid, where the money went, what it was spent on, etc., that's a pretty big indication to me, especially when they're at the same time, the timing of this, trying to deregulate something on the Supreme Court through a group organization that has some very close ties to a Supreme Court justice. I don't know. Seems like some influence peddling, trying to get her influence, and most importantly, to get his influence. Now, the Post also noted how extremely secretive the group is. So these donors definitely trying to protect themselves and be completely anonymous. And so members had communicated through a private Google group, according to emails obtained by the Washington Post. Apparently, they weren't secretive enough. And those emails contained warnings not to share any information that could reveal the identities of the group's members. One said, absolutely do not forward emails from here without removing all identifying information from this listserv, warned one. So, look, there is a reason that they wanted to keep all of this a secret. Maybe it just has to do with, I don't know, these donors, I would assume corporate donors, lobbyists, not wanting to be named because then it would look bad on them. It would look bad on their, their companies, and they would get some social media backlash. Or it could, again, point to some conflicts of interest in trying to land these kinds of cases in front of the court through the influencing of the family member of this specific justice. Look, overall, according to a legal expert who is also an expert in ethics, if Thomas was paid for her work with Crowdsourcers, either directly or through her consulting firm, then yes, there could be a recusal issue depending on the size and timing of the payment. Now, she does run, as I mentioned, a for-profit consulting firm. Now, the reason that it is, I think, mainly for-profit as opposed to a nonprofit consulting firm or nonprofit organization, is that there's less disclosure requirements on a for-profit firm. And so, that said, as a Supreme Court justice, her husband Clarence must list the source of his wife's income on the annual financial disclosure forms. However, he does not have to list the amount. And since 2018, Liberty Consulting, her firm, was the sole source of income for Mrs. Thomas, and that the firm had paid her salary and benefits. So again, if the firm was paid, that goes into her pocket. If she was paid directly by Crowdsourcers, that also goes into her pocket. Both of those, definitely a conflict of interest if she got paid. And we don't know because we don't have access to where the money went from these donations. So all we can rely on is their word, which, let's be honest, that doesn't mean a whole lot. It just doesn't mean a whole lot. Now, some of the issues that her firm consulted on as well involved the Trump administration, like Trump's Muslim ban. Now, there's a nonprofit called the Center for Security Policy who reported in its tax filings that it paid Liberty Consulting a total of $236,000 in 2017 and 2018, according to the New Yorker. a political action committee run by another Crowdsourcers member and direct mail pioneer, also reported paying Liberty $5,000 for video production. And look, that's just Crowdsourcers and her involvement. She actually got even more personally involved in the Trump administration, because you do remember her having text messages, text exchanges with, of course, Mark Meadows, Trump's chief of staff, talking about how to push the big lie and to make sure that Donald Trump overthrows democracy. So, yeah. Now, Trump had, by the way, also said that he hoped that his voter fraud, the big lie stuff, would end up going to the Supreme Court, and that the Supreme Court would rule that he could remain president, which, again, incredibly unprecedented move, and it didn't turn out that way. So, look, I do believe, based on what I know, that yes, this was an attempt to influence Thomas through Ginni Thomas. Was it effective? I guess you'd really have to look at the votes to determine that he has taken. But he has not recused himself, as far as I know, from any cases. And so, not only that, but there's a lot about the Supreme Court justices and what they do that we don't necessarily we're not privy to it. Not only that, but the court doesn't have a code of ethics that they're forced to follow. And so all of this is pretty much allowed. There's really nothing we can do. These Supreme Court justices can easily do corruption from the bench, and nobody can do a goddamn thing about it. That's something that, again, if you want to, and by the way, it's not like this is, corruption. Let me rephrase that, right? It's not as if corrupt people didn't look at the court and say, why don't we just corrupt the court? Go through them, and then we can have corporate rule, because that actually already happened. And so about the time where they, decided, I believe it was the Powell memo, where they figured out, I think it was Nixon that figured it out, that, hey, why don't we just corrupt the Supreme Court and then use the Supreme Court to deliver this country to corporations and wealthy interests? And that's exactly what has happened. And so, unfortunately, we are living in corporate rule. And we are living in an age of massive, massive political and judicial corruption. And I don't see really anyone doing anything about it. That sucks. Okay. Oh, the problem started before Citizens United, Groove Dragon. Citizens United took the already terrible pro-corporate decisions that we had in the past. Money being, considered free speech, and corporations being allowed to do independent expenditures, unlimited. Essentially, all of that was exacerbated by Citizens United, but had existed before. So it just took a situation that was already bad and made it that much worse. Are any Dems going to run in this issue? More likely they'll run from it. You were correct, Dave. You were absolutely correct. There aren't any. There aren't a lot of Democrats, any that I can really know of, that are running on the issue of getting money out of politics and ending this kind of, corruption, these corporate donations. Look, even, Democrats that I generally like, people like AOC, they don't run in this stuff. She doesn't talk about this stuff enough as far as I know. And that is, that's pretty disturbing. And doesn't go after, the issue of corruption and money in politics, like we had hoped that she would. And even Bernie Sanders, I love Bernie Sanders. I don't think he goes up hard enough on it. So that's unfortunate. Yeah. I'm just going to stop before my cynicism makes me say something even worse. Okay. But anyway, I think it's a good point. It's a fair point. Okay. So, let me thank some super chats and some members. Read some super chats and thank some members. Sorry. All right. Nomadic Dragon, thank you for being a member for a month over on YouTube, a channel member. Hey, if you want to, help the channel, you can become a channel member on YouTube by hitting the join button below. You can also, of course, bring the ticker back up. You can become a patron, so you don't get Google or anything like that involved in the process of supporting the show. Jonathan Leiter says, "You're worth this old drag performer's wig money." Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I really do. So thank you, Jonathan Leiter. Yabby Mathis for the very kind $20. Someone has our guns. We are statistical. Statistical are supposed to have no guns in this house. Okay. Let's see. Koru, thank you for the gifted membership. And Jose Kelly, thank you for being a new member, signing up to be a supporter on YouTube. Really appreciate it. Okay. So let's see. Let's go over here to our Twitch community. I could not see because of like a error in my OBS comments from our Twitch community. So sorry about that. Let me see if I can get into the stream here. Thank you, everybody who is in our Twitch stream and our Twitch community. All right. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Please like and share the stream. Check out the videos if you missed any of the segments here. And also check out some of the other videos that we have. All right. With that, love you all. Thank you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you back here later. You have a great night.
There's insanity in the control room. Who's got a hammer? Please clap.
Jewish space lasers.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.
USA, USA.